If you want peace, do this every time you're hurt by Earl Nightingale. Lesson 1. The Great Discovery. Your mind is your kingdom. Good morning. This is your guide to true peace, and I'd like to begin our journey together with what may be the most important discovery of your life. Have you ever noticed how two people can experience the same event, yet react completely differently? One person becomes outraged, while another remains calm. One harbors resentment for years, while another forgives and moves forward. What makes the difference? The great discovery, the secret that has transformed countless lives, is this: peace is not something we find outside ourselves. It's not dependent on circumstances, other people, or external conditions. Peace is an internal state that you, and only you, control. You see, most people live their entire lives believing that their feelings are caused by what happens to them. Someone says something unkind, and they feel hurt. Someone criticizes their work, and they feel discouraged. Someone betrays their trust, and they feel devastated. But here's the liberating truth. Between what happens to you and how you feel about it lies a critical space. In that space is your power to choose your response. This is the fundamental principle that changes everything. No one can hurt you without your permission. I discovered this truth during a particularly difficult period in my own life. Everything seemed to be going wrong at once. Business setbacks, personal disappointments, criticism from those I respected. At first, I reacted as most people do, with anger, defensiveness, and self-pity. But one quiet morning, while reflecting on my situation, I suddenly understood what countless wise men and women throughout history have taught. I was giving away my power. By allowing external events to determine my internal state, I had surrendered the kingdom of my mind to forces outside my control. The difference between stimulus and response is where your freedom lives. An unkind word is merely sound waves. A disapproving look is just light reflecting off someone's face. A rejection is simply information about someone else's decision. None of these things contain emotions. The emotions come from how you interpret and respond to them. Take a moment right now to think about something that happened recently that upset you. Now ask yourself, was it the event itself? Was it the event itself that caused my feelings, or was it my thoughts about the event? You'll discover that it's always the latter. This isn't just philosophy. It's practical wisdom for daily living. The next time someone says or does something that would normally upset you, pause. Notice the space between what happened and your reaction. In that space lies your freedom to choose a response that serves your peace rather than destroys it. Remember this powerful truth. Your mind is your kingdom. You alone decide who and what influences your emotions. Guard the gates of your mind carefully, for everything in your life flows from it. No one, not your boss, your spouse, your friends, or your enemies, can hurt you emotionally without your cooperation. When you truly understand this, you possess the master key to lasting peace. Lesson 2. The Permission Slip of Pain. Have you ever stopped to consider what actually happens when someone hurts your feelings? It's a fascinating process that occurs largely without our conscious awareness. What we call being hurt is actually a series of lightning, fast decisions we make about what others say or do. Let me share something profound with you. Nobody can hurt you without your permission. When someone says something unkind or does something thoughtless, there's a split second where you make a choice. In that moment, you either grant or deny permission for their words or actions to cause you pain. Think about it this way. Imagine you're carrying an invisible permission slip with you everywhere you go. On this slip is written, "I hereby grant permission for the following people to determine my emotional state." Every time you feel hurt, you've unconsciously handed someone this permission slip and signed your name at the bottom. The anatomy of emotional pain is quite simple once you see it clearly. First comes the external event, perhaps a critical comment or a dismissive gesture. Next comes your interpretation of that event, which happens instantly and automatically. Then follows your emotional reaction based on that interpretation. Finally, you experience the physical sensations and thoughts that accompany the emotion. What makes us vulnerable to hurt are our expectations. When we expect others to behave in certain ways, we set ourselves up for pain when they inevitably fail to meet those expectations. We become emotionally dependent, hanging our happiness on the actions and words of others. I remember a businessman who came to me years ago, deeply wounded by a partner who had betrayed his trust. "Earl," he said, "I can't sleep. I can't focus. I'm consumed by this betrayal." I asked him a simple question. "Who is suffering from your anger?" The answer, of course, was him. His partner had moved on while he remained trapped in a prison of his own making. Here's a practical technique that can transform your life. I call it the 10-second pause. The next time someone says or does something that would normally hurt you, pause for just 10 seconds before reacting. In that brief window, ask yourself, do I choose to give this person permission to determine how I feel right now? This simple pause interrupts the automatic pattern and puts you back in control. Your emotional reactions are habits, and like all habits, they can be changed. Just as you've learned to react with hurt, you can learn to react with hurt. You can learn to respond with peace. This doesn't happen overnight. It requires practice and persistence. But with each permission slip you withhold, you reclaim a piece of your emotional sovereignty. Remember, the greatest power you possess is not the ability to control what happens to you, but the freedom to choose how you respond. When you truly understand this, you'll never again give away your permission slip of peace. Lesson 3. The Thought Revolution. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the most powerful control room in the universe, your mind. I'm Earl Nightingale, and today we're exploring how your thoughts create your reality, moment by moment, day by day. Your mind is like a garden. What you plant there will grow. This isn't mystical thinking. It's practical psychology. The thoughts you give attention to expand in your consciousness, shaping your perception and directing your responses, to life's circumstances. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how focusing on a problem only makes it seem bigger? Meanwhile, directing your attention toward solutions suddenly reveals possibilities that were invisible moments before. This is the power of directed thinking, life's master key that unlocks doors to peace, regardless of what others say or do to you. When someone's words or actions hurt you, remember the law of substitution. Nature abhors a vacuum, and this applies to your thinking too. You cannot simply remove a negative thought. You must replace it with something better. When hurt feelings arise, immediately substitute thoughts of understanding, compassion, or even simple curiosity about why the other person acted as they did. I once knew a factory manager who was constantly bothered by his supervisor's criticism. Every comment felt like a personal attack. His work suffered until he learned to substitute thoughts of how can I improve for thoughts of why is he attacking me. His entire experience transformed without his supervisor changing one bit. Here's a practical method I call the 5-question approach. When someone's actions hurt you, ask yourself, what facts am I certain about in this situation? What assumptions might I be making? What can I learn from the interaction? How would I see this if it weren't happening to me? What response would make me proud of myself tomorrow? These questions redirect your thinking from reaction to creation. You move from victim to architect of your experience. Remember, friends, what you think about grows. Your attention is like water and sunshine to the garden of your mind. Choose thoughts of peace, understanding, and growth, especially when you're hurt, and watch how differently life unfolds. A man once told me, "Earl, I followed your advice after my neighbor insulted me. Instead of thinking about how wronged I felt, I wondered what troubles he might be facing. By the time I saw him again, I felt curiosity instead of anger. We ended up having the best conversation in years." This is the thought revolution in action. It's not complicated, but it does require practice. Start small. The next time someone cuts you off in traffic, instead of thinking, "What a jerk," try, "I wonder what urgency they're facing today." Notice how differently your body feels with this simple substitution. What you think about grows. Choose your thoughts as carefully as you choose your friends. This is your power. One no person can take from you without your permission. Lesson 4. Emotional Self-Mastery, the Greatest Victory. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk to you today about the most profound conquest known to mankind. It isn't the scaling of Mount Everest or the exploration of distant planets. It's something far more remarkable, the mastery of one's own emotional state. Think about it. What is the highest achievement of human capability? Is it not the ability to remain in command of ourselves regardless of external circumstances? The captain who navigates stormy seas with a steady hand demonstrates true power. So do you, when you maintain your composure in the face of criticism, disappointment, or perceived injury. Your emotions, you see, are fundamentally biological in nature. When someone says something hurtful, your body releases stress hormones. Your heart rate increases. Blood rushes to your limbs. These are ancient survival mechanisms, but in today's world, they often cause more harm than good. The great secret is this: you can transcend these biological reactions, not by suppressing them. That's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. Eventually, it pops up with even greater force. No, the path to emotional self-mastery is acknowledging the emotion, observing it like a scientist, and then consciously choosing your response. Imagine having an emotional dashboard for your life, gauges and controls that allow you to monitor and adjust your internal state. This isn't fantasy. You can build such a system through consistent practice. When someone criticizes your work, for instance, notice the initial flare of defensiveness. Say to yourself, I notice I'm feeling defensive right now. This simple act of observation creates space between the stimulus and your response. In that space lies your freedom. Try this technique. When emotional pain strikes, take a deep breath and count to 5. During those 5 seconds, ask yourself, who do I want to be in this moment? This question activates your higher brain functions and puts you back in the driver's seat. Another powerful practice is emotional rehearsal. Before entering situations you know might trigger hurt feelings, mentally rehearse responding with composure. Picture yourself smiling, responding thoughtfully, rather than reactively. Your nervous system doesn't distinguish well between vivid imagination and reality. This practice creates neural pathways of composure you can access when needed. Remember, emotional self-mastery isn't about becoming cold or unfeeling. Quite the opposite. It's about experiencing your emotions fully while not being tyrannized by them. It's about choosing which emotions serve your highest good and which do not. The person who has achieved emotional self-mastery enjoys a kind of freedom most people never know. External events lose their power to disrupt inner peace. Relationships improve because responses come from wisdom rather than wounded instinct. Most importantly, you reclaim the energy previously lost to emotional turbulence. Imagine what you might accomplish with that reclaimed power. Self-mastery is not the absence of emotion, but the wisdom to choose which emotions serve you. This is the greatest victory, not over others, but over the limitations of your own nature. And it is available to you right now, in this very moment, through the power of your magnificent mind. Lesson 5. The Forgiveness Formula. My friends, I want to talk with you today about something extraordinary, something that has the power to set you free from the heaviest chains you'll ever carry. I'm talking about forgiveness. You see, most people have it all backward. They think forgiveness is something you give to others, a kind of gift or pardon you bestow upon someone who has wronged you. But that's not it at all. Forgiveness is a gift you give yourself. It's your declaration of independence. When someone hurts you and you hold on to that hurt, refusing to forgive, you've essentially allowed them to take up residence in your mind. You've given them free rent in your emotional space. You carry them with you everywhere you go, at the breakfast table during your workday, even in those quiet moments before sleep. Is that what you want? Let me share a simple truth. Unforgiveness is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It's a mathematical certainty that the person suffering most from your grudge is you. Now, don't misunderstand what forgiveness truly is. Forgiveness doesn't mean you condone what happened. It doesn't mean you have to reconcile with someone who hurt you. It doesn't mean you forget. Forgiveness simply means you release the emotional charge that's been weighing you down. Here's how you do it. First, acknowledge the hurt fully. Don't pretend it didn't happen or doesn't matter. Look at it squarely. Second, recognize how holding on to this hurt has affected you. Has it made you bitter, distrustful? Has it stolen your joy? Third, make a conscious decision to release it, not because the other person deserves forgiveness, but because you deserve peace. I know a man who spent 15 years angry at his father for childhood neglect. 15 years. When he finally forgave his father, he told me, "Earl, I feel like I've set down a boulder I've been carrying since I was a boy." His father never even knew about this forgiveness. He had passed away years before, but my friend, he was finally free. Remember this: forgiveness isn't weakness. It's the ultimate strength that frees you from the prison of the past. Every time you're hurt, make forgiveness your immediate goal, not because you're doing a favor for someone else, but because you're choosing your own liberation. The person who hurt you may have taken something from you once. Don't let them continue taking your peace every day by refusing to forgive. As you practice this forgiveness formula, you'll find yourself becoming lighter, freer, and more at peace than you ever thought possible. The choice is always yours. You can hold on to the hurt, letting it shape your life and dim your future, or you can release it through forgiveness and reclaim your power. Which will you choose today? Remember, no one can hurt you without your permission, and with forgiveness, you withdraw that permission once and for all. Lesson 6. Building your emotional immune system. Just as your physical body has an immune system that protects you from disease, you possess an emotional immune system that can shield you from unnecessary pain. This remarkable internal mechanism doesn't develop by accident. It must be deliberately cultivated through daily practice and conscious living. Consider for a moment how your physical immune system functions. It doesn't prevent you from encountering germs and viruses. Rather, it strengthens your response when these invaders appear. Your emotional immune system works precisely the same way. You can't prevent difficult people or challenging circumstances from entering your life, but you can develop the internal strength to respond rather than react. The foundation of emotional immunity begins with awareness. Most people move through their days on automatic pilot, barely noticing the subtle emotional triggers that accumulate throughout their experiences. The emotionally resilient person, however, maintains a watchful eye on their internal state. They notice the slight tension in their shoulders when a certain coworker speaks. They recognize the faint sensation of anxiety when facing a particular situation. This awareness is your first line of defense. Physical well-being plays a crucial role in emotional resilience. Have you noticed how much more emotionally vulnerable you feel when you're exhausted, hungry, or ill? Your physical condition dramatically influences your emotional responses. Regular exercise, proper nutrition, and adequate rest aren't merely good health practices. They're essential components of your emotional immune system. Boundaries represent another vital element of emotional immunity. Many people mistakenly believe that having boundaries means building walls that keep others out. Nothing could be further from the truth. Healthy boundaries are more like properly functioning doors. They don't prevent connection, they simply regulate it. When you clearly establish what you will and won't accept in your relationships, you dramatically reduce the opportunities for others to trigger emotional pain. The emotionally resilient person also practices daily habits that strengthen their internal resources. Just as you might take vitamins to support your physical immune system, certain daily practices bolster your emotional defenses. Begin each morning with a few moments of gratitude, focusing on the good in your life rather than potential problems. Practice mindful breathing when you feel tension rising. Develop the habit of pausing before responding when emotions run high. Perhaps most importantly, regularly expose yourself to manageable challenges. Your physical immune system develops antibodies through exposure to germs. Similarly, your emotional immune system develops strength through successfully navigating challenges. Don't shy away from difficult situations. Approach them as opportunities to build your internal resources. Emotions like weather will always pass through your life. The emotionally immune person doesn't attempt to control the weather. They simply ensures they have the right equipment to handle whatever comes their way. With consistent practice and awareness, you'll develop an emotional immune system that allows you to move through life with remarkable resilience, giving less and less permission for others to disrupt your inner peace. Lesson 7. The Miracle of Meaning Making. I've often told my radio listeners that life's greatest secret lies not in avoiding difficulties, but in how we interpret them. This secret, the miracle of meaning making, is perhaps our most valuable human gift. When someone hurts you, remember this: you alone assign meaning to that experience. Think of meaning as the master key that unlocks a transformed relationship with pain. When a hurtful comment comes your way, you stand at a critical crossroads. Will you interpret it as evidence that you're inadequate, or will you see it as information about the other person's state of mind? The meaning you choose determines whether you suffer or grow. I recall a young man in Milwaukee who lost his job after 20 years with the same company. His colleagues avoided him as though failure were contagious. He felt betrayed and humiliated. But rather than permission to devastate him, he gave this experience a different meaning. This, he decided, is my life telling me it's time for a new chapter. Within a year, he had built a consulting practice that doubled his previous income. The hurt became the herald of his greatest success. When something painful happens, ask yourself 3 transformative questions. First, what can I learn from this? Second, how might this be serving me in ways I don't yet understand? And third, what strength might I develop by facing this challenge? These questions extract gold from what appears to be worthless rock. Consider the great inventors, artists, and leaders throughout history. Almost without exception, their greatest contributions emerged from periods of tremendous pain. Helen Keller's blindness and deafness became the foundation for inspiring millions. Lincoln's deep melancholy forged his compassionate leadership during America's darkest hour. They didn't succeed despite their suffering. They didn't succeed because of the meaning they gave it. When someone cuts you off in traffic, you can make it mean people are selfish and inconsiderate, or you might decide someone is having a difficult day, and I have an opportunity to practice patience. Same event, entirely different emotional outcomes based solely on the meaning you assign. The practice is simple but profound. When hurt arrives, pause. Notice the automatic meaning your mind wants to attach. Then consciously choose a different interpretation, one that empowers rather than diminishes you. This isn't positive thinking, it's meaningful thinking. The events themselves are neutral. The sun shines on everyone without preference. Rain falls on the just and unjust alike. Only the meaning we attach creates our experience of these events. The next time someone's words or actions cause pain, remember this truth. The meaning of any event is the meaning you give it. Choose one that serves your growth. In that choice lies your freedom, your peace, and your power. This is the miracle of meaning, making, transforming life's lead into gold through the alchemy of interpretation. Lesson 8. The Conversation Within. Good morning. This is Earl Nightingale. What we're about to explore today may well be the most powerful force in your life, though, like the air you breathe, you might hardly notice it. I'm talking about your self-talk, that constant stream of conversation happening between your ears. Every minute of every day, you're talking to yourself. This internal dialogue shapes your reality more profoundly than perhaps any other single factor. When someone wounds you, with a sharp word, a thoughtless action, or deliberate cruelty, what happens next depends entirely on what you say to yourself about the experience. Most people allow this inner conversation to run on autopilot, like leaving a radio tuned to a station playing nothing but troubling news. She doesn't respect me. I always get treated this way. I'll never recover from this. These automatic thoughts create your emotional reality. But here's the magnificent truth. You can change the station. You can take control of this conversation within. Begin by simply listening. Become aware of what you're telling yourself when hurt occurs. Don't judge these thoughts. Just notice them. Most of us have never really paid attention to this constant commentary. Once you hear it clearly, you gain the power to change it. When someone hurts you, your first internal words might be, "How dare they?" or "This is terrible." These initial reactions happen with lightning speed. But what follows is your choice. Will you amplify the hurt with thoughts like, nobody respects me or things always go wrong? Or will you pivot to something more constructive? I've found the rule of threes remarkably effective for stopping negative thought spirals. When you catch yourself in harmful self-talk, immediately interrupt it 3 times. Stop. Stop, 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 stop. Stop. This pattern interruption creates space for something better. Into this space, plant carefully chosen words that serve you. Not empty affirmations, but truthful statements that put you back in control. This feeling is temporary. I choose how I respond to this. This person's actions reflect their limitations, not my worth. Your mind will believe what you tell it with feeling and repetition. This isn't wishful thinking. It's mental conditioning of the highest order. The great psychologist William James said, "The greatest discovery of my generation is that human beings can alter their lives by altering their attitudes of mind." When hurt arrives, and it will, use it as a signal to become acutely aware of your internal conversation. Speak to yourself as you would to someone you deeply love and respect. Be firm but compassionate. Be truthful but constructive. Remember, the conversation within creates the experience without. Master this inner dialogue, and you master your emotional life. No one, absolutely no one, can hurt you when you control the conversation in your own mind. This is Earl Nightingale reminding you that peace isn't the absence of storms, but the ability to remain centered within them. And that center is found in the words you speak to yourself when the winds begin to blow. Lesson 9. The peace that passes understanding. My friends, I want to talk to you today about a peace so profound that it defies ordinary explanation, a tranquility of spirit that remains steady and true regardless of the storms that rage around you. This is not the peace of pleasant circumstances or the temporary absence of conflict. No, this is something far more valuable. When someone hurts you, and they will, for this is part of the human journey, there exists a moment of pure potential. In that golden moment between the action and your reaction lies the seed of your freedom. Most people miss this opportunity entirely. They respond automatically like a puppet whose strings are pulled by others. But you are no puppet. Think of it this way. Imagine you're walking barefoot and step on a thorn. Your immediate reaction is to feel pain and perhaps cry out. This is natural and biological. But what if, after removing the thorn, you continued to limp and wince days later, even though the wound had healed? That would be a choice, wouldn't it? And yet, this is precisely what we do with emotional injuries. We nurse them, rehearse them, and keep them alive long after they could have healed. I've discovered in my own life that peace comes not from controlling what happens to you, but from controlling what happens in you. Every time someone hurts you, you stand at a crossroads. One path leads to bitterness, resentment, and a perpetual replay of the hurt. The other leads to growth, wisdom, and profound peace. Here's what to do every time you're hurt. First, acknowledge the pain without judgment. Yes, that hurt. I feel it. This simple acknowledgement prevents the pain from going underground where it can fester unattended. Second, ask yourself this life-changing question. What does this reveal that I needed to know? Perhaps you discover a boundary that needs strengthening. Maybe you recognize a pattern in your relationships that requires attention. Every hurt carries within it a message, if only we have the courage to receive it. Third, choose your response deliberately, not reactively. Remember, hurried responses are almost always regretted responses. Take a deep breath. Step back, see the larger picture. The person who hurt you is fighting their own battles, carrying their own wounds. This doesn't excuse their behavior, but understanding it liberates you from taking it personally. Finally, release the hurt with the same deliberation with which you'd release a bird back to the sky. Open your hands. Let it go, not because the hurt doesn't matter, but because your peace matters more. I've seen men and women transform their lives with this simple practice. A businessman in Chicago once told me how this approach saved not only his marriage, but his very sanity when faced with betrayal. A teacher in Dallas explained how it revolutionized her classroom management when dealing with difficult students. The peace that passes understanding isn't found in controlling others or in perfect circumstances. It's found in that sacred space between stimulus and response, the space where your true power resides. Practice this every time you're hurt, and watch as your capacity for genuine peace expands beyond anything you thought possible. Lesson 10. The Magnificent Power of Choice. Hello, my friend. This is Earl Nightingale, and today we're going to explore something so profound, yet so simple, that many go their entire lives without truly grasping it. When you're hurt, and we all get hurt, you possess an extraordinary power that can transform your experience instantly. That power is choice. Consider for a moment what happens when someone says something unkind. The words travel through the air as sound waves. They enter your ears as vibrations. But what happens next? This is where the miracle occurs. Between the reception of those words and your emotional response lies a sacred space, the space where your power resides. In this space, small as it may seem, exists the greatest freedom known to mankind. It's the freedom to choose your response. The person who understands this never again becomes a victim of circumstance. I recall meeting a gentleman in Chicago who had endured unspeakable tragedy. He had lost his family in an accident caused by another's negligence. For months, he lived in bitterness, his health deteriorating, his work suffering. Then one morning, while staring at himself in the mirror, he made a decision, perhaps the most important decision of his life. He decided that though he couldn't choose what had happened to him, he could choose how to carry it forward. That morning, he told me, I realized I had been giving away my power day after day. I couldn't bring my family back, but I could honor their memory by refusing to let anger destroy what remained of my life. This man's story illustrates what I want you to do every time you're hurt. Pause and choose. The pause is critical. Most of us react automatically, like machines programmed to produce anger when the button of insult is pressed, or sadness when the lever of rejection is pulled. But you are not a machine. You are a magnificent human being with the divine gift of choice. When hurt comes, and it will come, take a deep breath. Feel the space between stimulus and response widen. In that widened space, ask yourself, what might this situation be teaching me? How do I wish to respond as the person I aspire to be? Remember, choosing your response doesn't mean denying your feelings. It means acknowledging them and then deciding whether they serve your highest good. Sometimes the wisest choice is to express hurt. Other times it's to walk away. And sometimes it's to respond with unexpected kindness, which often dissolves conflict in remarkable ways. Practice makes this easier. Each time you exercise your power of choice, you strengthen it. Eventually, what once required conscious effort becomes second nature. You'll find yourself responding rather than reacting, creating peace rather than conflict. The greatest among us aren't those who avoid hurt, for that's impossible, but those who've mastered the art of choosing their response to it. This is how peace is created, not by controlling the world around you, but by claiming the sovereignty of your inner kingdom. So remember, when hurt comes knocking at your door, pause, breathe, and choose. Your response in that moment will either chain you to suffering or set you free toward peace. Lesson 11. The Power of Peaceful Response. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this pivotal chapter where we discover one of life's most magnificent truths. I've traveled across this great nation speaking to thousands, and I can tell you with certainty that the way you respond when hurt determines the quality of your entire life. When someone's words or actions pierce your heart, remember that you stand at a crossroads of immense importance. In that critical moment, you have a choice that few recognize but all possess. You can react with anger, resentment, and hurt, or you can respond with peace, understanding, and wisdom. Now, let me share something profound. Peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the presence of power, your power to choose. When someone launches verbal arrows your way or treats you unfairly, they're attempting to deliver a package of negativity. The magnificent truth is that you decide whether to accept delivery. I recall a story of a gentleman in Chicago who worked under an extremely difficult supervisor. Daily, this supervisor would belittle him and create unnecessary obstacles. For months, this gentleman absorbed every harsh word, carried it home, and allowed it to poison his evenings with his family. One day, while listening to a broadcast, he heard something that changed everything. No one can hurt you without your permission. That very afternoon, when his supervisor began the usual barrage, something remarkable happened. Instead of accepting the delivery of negativity, he simply responded, "I appreciate your feedback, but I choose not to be disturbed by it." He continued his work with excellence and peace. Within weeks, the supervisor's approach changed entirely. What happened? This wise gentleman withdrew his permission to be hurt. He recognized the sovereign territory of his mind and protected its borders. Here's what I want you to do every time you're hurt. Pause. Take a deep breath. Then say to yourself, "I do not give permission for this to disturb my peace." This simple declaration activates your greatest human power, the power to choose your response. Your emotional state is too precious to place in someone else's hands. Would you give a stranger your life savings? Of course not. Yet many people willingly hand over their emotional well-being to anyone who happens to criticize or disappoint them. The next time someone attempts to hurt you, remember that they're simply making a request for your emotional disturbance. You can politely decline their request. You can say, "Thank you, but I choose peace instead." Practice this response faithfully and you'll discover an astonishing truth. As you withdraw permission to be hurt, the frequency of hurtful incidents mysteriously declines. People treat you differently when they recognize the unshakable fortress of your internal peace. My friends, in this world of constant conflict and tension, your greatest asset is your peaceful response. Guard it carefully, nurture it daily, and remember always that no external force can disturb your internal kingdom without your consent. This is the priceless key to living with dignity, power, and unshakable serenity in a turbulent world. Lesson 12. Peace is your natural state. This is Earl Nightingale, and today we arrive at our final chapter together. Throughout our journey, we've uncovered the remarkable power that lives within each of us, the power to choose our response to life's challenges. Peace isn't something you need to acquire. Peace is your natural state when you remove the barriers you've placed between yourself and your true nature. Just as water naturally flows downhill, your mind naturally returns to peace when you stop blocking its path. Consider a child at play. Notice how quickly they move from tears to laughter. They haven't yet learned to hold on to pain. They feel it fully, then release it completely. This natural ability hasn't left you. It's simply been covered by years of habit. When someone says something hurtful, remember that their words pass through your mind's filtering system. You decide, consciously or unconsciously, what meaning to attach to those words. Most people have developed the habit of attaching painful meanings automatically, but habits can be changed. The technique we've explored throughout this book is remarkably simple. Whenever you feel hurt, pause. In that momentary space between stimulus and response lies your freedom. Ask yourself, am I giving someone permission to disturb my peace? Then gently withdraw that permission. The world will continue to present challenges. People will still act thoughtlessly. Disappointments will occur, but none of these external events can touch your internal peace unless you grant them access. The door to your emotional home has only one doorkeeper, you. I once knew a man who had endured tremendous suffering. He'd lost his family in a tragic accident and spent years in bitterness. One day he made a discovery that changed everything. I realized, he told me, that I was using my suffering as proof that the world was against me. When I stopped needing that proof, I could finally let the pain go. That's the secret. We often cling to our hurts because they serve some purpose in our identity. They become proof of injustice or justification for not fully engaging with life. When you recognize this pattern, you can make a different choice. Practice peace as you would practice any valuable skill. Start with small hurts before tackling lifetime wounds. Each time you successfully maintain your center, Despite provocation, you strengthen your emotional muscles. Remember, the ultimate goal isn't to become invulnerable. Rather, it's to remain open-hearted while maintaining your inner stability. True peace doesn't mean avoiding life's storms. It means being the steady captain of your ship regardless of weather. As we conclude our time together, I want to leave you with this truth. Peace isn't just possible. It's your birthright. No external circumstance can take it from you without your consent. And that consent can be withdrawn at any moment of your choosing. The next time someone or something threatens your serenity, simply smile and say to yourself, "No, thank you. My peace is not available for disruption today." In that moment, you'll discover the true meaning of personal power.